Imagine standing in front of, well, just a massive canvas, like a painting that consumed 7 agonizing, obsessive years of an artist's life.
Right, and a painting that, despite absorbing nearly a decade of dedicated work, might not even actually be finished.
Exactly. And yet, this single, potentially incomplete image completely altered the trajectory of modern art as we know it.
It really is one of the most profound paradoxes in art history. I mean, you have this immense dedication, almost unreasonable volume of time poured into framing one specific scene.
Yeah.
And the result isn't a highly polished, photorealistic snapshot. The result is something that fundamentally shatters how human beings represent the visual world.
It's wild to think about. And today, we are pulling from a fascinating stack of sources to figure out how that happened. We're looking at encyclopedic historical records, and we're also zooming way in on a high-resolution visual examination of a true post-impressionist masterpiece.
Oh, absolutely.
We are diving deep into Paul Cézanne's The Large Bathers, specifically the colossal version that currently lives at the Philadelphia Museum of Art.
And this specific canvas isn't just, a painting you casually walk past in a gallery. It functions as a turning point. It's a fulcrum on which the entire 20th century of visual art basically pivots.
Okay, let's unpack this, because our mission for this deep dive isn't to just give you a dry museum plaque description of what sits on the canvas.
No, definitely not.
We want to understand the why. Like, why did this specific, highly restricted combination of ochre, mauve, and blue-greens give the next generation of artists permission to start the artistic revolutions of the 20th century?
Right. What is the actual visual math hidden inside those brushstrokes?
Exactly. So to get there, where do we start?
Well, to understand that math, we first have to understand the sheer physical and temporal weight of what Cézanne was attempting. We have to look at the scale of his ambition.
And the scale is staggering. I mean, to give you a mental picture of the physical presence of this thing, it is the largest canvas Paul Cézanne ever painted.
It's huge.
You are looking at a surface that is nearly 7 feet tall and over 8 feet wide. It is an imposing object that commands physical space in whatever room it's in.
It really does. And then you layer on the timeline, right? He worked on this single painting from 1899 right up until his death in 1906.
Wow.
Yeah, it just sat there, dominating his studio and labs for 7 uninterrupted years. He just kept working it, reworking it, shifting the paint around.
But, the detail from our sources that really made me stop and stare is the larger context of that timeline.
Oh, the 36 years.
Yes. He spent 7 years on this specific canvas, sure, but he had actually been painting this exact bather's theme repeatedly since 1870.
It's incredible.
That is 36 years of his life dedicated to this one single concept. This canvas in Philadelphia is just the most heavily worked of the 3 versions that historians consider his conclusive attempts.
36 years of returning to the same conceptual riverbank. I mean, think about the volume of history passing by outside his studio window during that time.
Oh, totally.
The world is literally inventing the telephone. The first airplane takes flight, entire empires are shifting, and Cézanne is just in a room staring at the exact same arrangement of trees and human figures, refusing to move on.
The best analogy I could come up with is like a novelist writing a massive epic book.
Okay, yeah.
But instead of writing new chapters, advancing the plot, exploring new characters, the author just spends 7 years obsessively rewriting and restructuring the exact same opening scene over and over and over again.
That is exactly what it's like.
I just struggle to wrap my head around that. Why spend a lifetime and then 7 solid years in that Love studio on this specific scene? I mean, it's just people by a river.
Well, when an artist repeats a subject for almost 4 decades, they are no longer trying to capture the subject itself. They aren't trying to paint a picture of a river anymore. They are using the subject to solve a fundamental visual puzzle. For Cézanne, this canvas was a laboratory.
A laboratory for what exactly?
For the very structure of nature. So the post-impressionist movement, where Cézanne was a towering figure, was largely a reaction against the fleeting, momentary light of the Impressionists.
Okay, yeah, like the really soft, blurry stuff.
Right. If you think of a classic Impressionist painting, like Monet's Water Lilies, it's all about capturing a quick, beautiful, momentary snapshot of light on a Sunday afternoon.
Right. Yeah.
But Cézanne wasn't interested in the momentary. He was prioritizing structure. He wanted to figure out how to make a painting solid and durable, to give it the heavy weight of the classical art you see in museums, but using modern techniques.
Oh, I see.
So he used these bathers as his testing ground to figure out the geometry that holds the entire visual world together.
Okay, so if we look at this as a laboratory where he's running experiments on structure,
Right.
let's step inside the actual architecture he built over those 7 years.
Do it.
Because at 8 feet wide, you really feel like you can literally step into this canvas, and when you do, the construction becomes incredibly obvious.
Oh, the composition is anything but a natural, accidental arrangement. It is deeply, deeply engineered.
So picture this for a second. You have 2 distinct groups of nude bathers gathered on the riverbank. And in the water itself, there is a swimmer.
Right, just sort of breaking the surface.
Yeah, and if you let your eye drift past them deeper into the painting, there are 2 more figures on the far bank. And then, way in the deep background, standing almost like a sentinel, there's a castle.
But the element that immediately dominates your field of vision, the structure that holds all of those figures together, is the trees.
Oh, the trees are impossible to ignore. There are 2 distinct groups of them, and they lean heavily toward the center, forming this massive, pronounced vault over the bathers.
Yes.
They literally pull your eye right down into the central depth of the painting.
Exactly. They act as an architectural frame. And the palette he uses to build that frame is surprisingly limited for a painting that took 7 years to construct.
Right. You would think 7 years of work would result in, I don't know, every color of the rainbow. But the palette is incredibly restricted.
Very restricted.
It's a sober, tightly controlled use of color. We're talking almost exclusively ochre, mauve, and these very specific blue-greens. It is not a vibrant, chaotic splash of a wild forest.
And what's fascinating here is how that restricted color palette directly feeds into the architectural feel you are describing.
How so?
Well, if Cézanne had used 100 different colors, like bright reds for flowers, sunny yellows for the light, deep purples for the deep shade, your eye would bounce all over the canvas, completely distracted by the surface beauty.
Oh, that makes sense. You'd just be looking at the pretty colors.
Exactly. By limiting the colors to just the ochre of the earth, the blue-green of the sky and the trees, and maybe some touches of mauve in the shadows, he strips away the distractions.
He forces you to focus on the geometry.
Yes, the geometry and the weight of the scene.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. When you look closely at the people, the bathers themselves, they don't look like soft, realistic, fleshy human beings.
Not at all.
They look incredibly heavy. They look like structural building blocks. Some of them are elongated, and their postures actually mirror the leaning of the trees.
Yeah, the forms rhyme with each other.
Right, it's like those trees aren't just plants. They look like the soaring arches of a Gothic cathedral, and the people are the stone pillars holding them up. He is treating human bodies and nature like pure architecture.
And the color completely unifies that scene. Because the skin of the bathers shares the exact same ochre and mauve tones as the earth and the clouds, he merges the human figures with the landscape.
Oh, wow.
They don't feel like temporary visitors who just happen to stop by this riverbank for a swim. They feel like permanent fixtures of the earth itself, as solid and immovable as the trees and that castle in the deep background.
It is undeniably heavy and monumental. But from that incredibly rigid, meticulously planned architecture, we run straight into a massive contradiction.
Ah, yes. The great mystery of the canvas.
The mystery of the unfinished masterpiece. Because the historical consensus, which is noted clearly in the encyclopedic records, is that this colossal work is considered potentially unfinished.
Right. Cézanne died in 1906, which is the same year this painting is dated.
And the biggest piece of evidence for this unfinished theory sits right there in the lower left center of the painting.
The famous white spot.
Yes. Among this carefully constructed, highly engineered group of bathers, there is an ambiguous, largely unpainted white patch. And art experts look at the shape of it, the placement of it, and the general context, and they think it might be a dog.
Right, it occupies the exact space where a dog might sit, observing the scene alongside the figures.
Okay, wait, I'm genuinely stuck on this. I need to push back on the timeline here.
Go for it.
He spent 7 entire years working on this one physical canvas in the Lava studio. He spent 36 years obsessed with this exact theme. He is constructing human bodies to act as architectural pillars. And we still aren't sure if a prominent white blob in the foreground is a dog or just a patch of canvas he completely forgot to paint before he died.
It does sound ridiculous when you put it like that.
Like, how does a masterpiece end up with a forgotten blob in the front row?
It feels entirely counterintuitive to how we are taught to think about a masterpiece.
Right.
We expect a masterpiece to be polished to absolute perfection with every single detail rendered flawlessly.
Yeah, exactly. If there's a dog, you expect to see the individual hairs of its fur gleaming in the sun.
But this raises a really important question. What was Cézanne actually trying to finish?
Wait, are you saying the dog, or like the polish of the dog, simply wasn't the point of the experiment?
Exactly. The unfinished nature of this painting actually amplifies its power because it is a window directly into his mental process.
Oh, I see.
If he had spent those 7 years polishing tiny, realistic details, like perfectly rendering that dog's fur, or the exact anatomical musculature of the bather's knees and elbows, he would have just been a highly skilled traditional painter.
Which we already established he wasn't interested in. He didn't want a realistic snapshot. He was interested in the laboratory.
Right. He was focused entirely on the structural map.
He was solely focused on the grand geometry.
Yes. The balance of those blue-greens against the ochres, the tension between the arched vault of the trees and the heavy figures below. Once the structure of the painting was resolved, once the architecture of the canvas held together and that visual puzzle was solved, the painting was, in his mind, conceptually complete.
Wow.
The fact that a patch of canvas in the corner is bare just doesn't matter to him because the bones of the painting are indestructible.
So the white blob stays a white blob because spending 3 weeks painting a realistic dog doesn't help solve the structural tension of the cathedral arches. It's just surface decoration.
Exactly, and that specific shift in thinking, the radical idea that a painting is ultimately about organizing shapes and colors on a flat surface, rather than creating a perfect, polished illusion of reality, that is the spark that ignites the rest of the century.
Let's follow that spark because we really need to talk about the ripple effect this painting had.
Yeah.
We had to zoom out from the canvas itself and look at what happened after Cézanne died in 1906.
It's a huge shift.
Because this wasn't just a quirky, unfinished painting with a missing dog that quietly ended up in a museum. The sources are incredibly explicit. The large bathers is fundamental to subsequent art history.
It truly acts as the bridge between the classical past and the chaotic future.
The records say it profoundly influenced the entire avant-garde movement. Like they specifically name-drop the absolute heavy hitters of the next generation. Henri Matisse, Georges Braque, Henry Moore, Pablo Picasso.
Oh yeah, the giants.
The sources argue that this final style of Cézanne directly announces the arrival of Cubism.
Well, I'd say it doesn't just announce the arrival of Cubism, it literally hands Picasso and Braque the actual mechanical blueprint for how to build it.
Okay, so what does this all mean? Imagine you are standing in the Philadelphia Museum of Art right now, looking up at this giant canvas of ochre bathers and blue-green trees.
Right.
How does a painting of women by a river lead directly to the wild, shattered, multi-perspective shapes of Picasso's Cubism? What is the actual visual link between this riverbank and the total fracturing of reality?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look at how perspective worked before Cézanne.
Okay.
For hundreds of years, basically since the Renaissance, painting was governed by strict rules of traditional perspective. A canvas was treated like a window.
Like you're looking out of a building.
Exactly. You look through it and things get smaller as they go back in space, creating this perfect illusion of three-dimensional reality.
So the goal was to make the canvas itself invisible. You're just looking through a pane of glass into another world.
Precisely. But Cézanne aggressively breaks that rule. Look at the large bathers again. He isn't trying to trick you into thinking you were looking through a window. He flattens the space. In a traditional painting, the blue sky is supposed to look 1,000,000 miles away, really light and airy.
Right.
But here, the blue-green of the sky feels just as thick, heavy, and structurally solid as the ochre mud on the bank.
Oh, he's acknowledging the physical object. He's saying, look, this isn't a magical window. This is a flat piece of cloth, and I am putting paint and shapes on it.
Yes. By turning bodies and trees into geometric shapes, saying, a human arm is essentially a cylinder or a torso is a structural block, he treats the painting as a two-dimensional object to be organized, not a 3D illusion to be maintained.
He strips reality down to its geometric components.
And because he proved that the canvas was just a flat surface with geometric shapes, he accidentally gave the next generation a dangerous new permission.
Right, because Picasso and Braque look at the large bathers, and they realize the implications of that flattened geometry.
Exactly. They realize that if Cézanne can turn a landscape into flat geometric blocks to serve the composition, well, they don't have to follow the rules of reality at all.
It's like if a human is just a cylinder, Cubism asks, why can't I unfold that cylinder and show the front, back, and side at the exact same time?
Boom! Cubism shatters that geometry entirely, showing multiple viewpoints simultaneously. Cézanne essentially picked the lock on traditional reality so Picasso could just kick the door down.
Man, it is incredible to think about the mechanics of that evolution.
It really is.
He spent 7 years in a room, obsessing over the structural weight of blue, greens, and ochres, turning bodies into pillars, leaving the dark unpainted because it didn't serve the math. And in doing so, he rewrites the rules of visual reality for the entire globe.
It is the ultimate testament to the power of artistic obsession. Just the sheer focus required to stare at one composition for 36 years until you accidentally invent the future.
Let's bring this all together. The large bathers at the Philadelphia Museum of Art is so much more than a scene of people by a river.
So much more.
It is a colossal 7-year obsession. It is a massive laboratory where Cézanne used a deeply restricted palette of ochres, mauves, and blue-greens to build an architectural vault out of trees and human bodies.
Yeah.
It is the vital heavy bridge that spans the gap between traditional perspective and the explosive birth of Cubism in the 20th century.
And as we step away from that massive canvas, I think there is a profound lesson hidden in that mysterious, unpainted patch of white.
Oh, the dog.
Yeah. Think about it. If an unfinished painting, a work where we can't even tell if a blob of paint is meant to be a dog, can serve as the foundational blueprint for an entire global art movement, what does that say about our modern obsession with perfect or finished work?
Oh, I love that framing. We get so caught up in the polish.
We really do. We spend so much time polishing the surface, trying to render every detail flawlessly for the world to see, completely terrified of leaving a rough edge. But perhaps true brilliance, the kind of brilliance that changes history, lies not in the polish, but in the boldness of the underlying structure. If the bones of what you are building are strong enough, the world will fill in the rest.
If the bones are strong enough, I mean, think about that the next time you're obsessing over the final polish of whatever canvas you happen to be working on.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep questioning the canvas.